TechInsights, the most trusted source of semiconductor analysis and market information.
Labor shortage has become the echo pandemic from the ravages of COVID is left on our economy. This is no more true than in the semiconductor industry, where workforce development has long been on the to-do list of many. We're going to have a conversation about this and more with Ajit Manocha, CEO and president of SEMI. And I know he's been a long time champion of workforce development. This is WeVision. I'm Dan Hutchison. Welcome to the program, Ajit.
Good morning, Dan. How are you doing?
Doing good. So now, Ajit, when I look around and see most of the industry efforts, what I typically see is people talk about workforce development strategies. And what I see is most of the time they're trying to lobby others to do something about it rather than do something about it themselves. And I have to really admit that that's the way I've been, is I tell everybody it's an issue, but I don't know how to do it. It's a real big problem. And I recall that was one of the reasons why you wanted to go to SEMI. So how do you see that SEMI was different when you were making that choice?
Dan, that's a very good question. Actually, when I was in my previous life, both in corporate worlds, whether Philips Semiconductors, which is NXP, or Global Foundries, when I was CEO of Global Foundries. And when I was starting the fab in Malta, New York, I had a major challenge of finding people. And of course, I started a lot of programs of developing workforce development for Malta fab. And we hired a lot of veterans and so on. And, my thinking after some time was, what's the core competency of a company like Global Foundries, or for, name the company, Intel, Broadcom, Qualcomm, any company. Core competency is to develop products and services. And if we start spending a lot of money and time on developing talent, which is not the core competency, we're doing it out of necessity, we have to. When I joined SEMI, I think it will be a great idea for SEMI to really work on this program on behalf of the industry, so that if we can really create a talent pipeline and industry can just tap into that pipeline instead of doing their own onesies and twosies programs and spend a lot of money on it. And in fact, they can spend more energy and efforts and money on developing their core competency products along the core competency. So that was my thinking. And
I like to say you say something is like oxygen. What's that all about?
Well, this is pretty straightforward for me. I mean, the industry is growing through phenomenal growth. And without the talent, the growth we will not be able to capture the growth. And it took us 60 plus years. So today, our IC revenue is around $550 billion. It took us 60 plus years. And now it's going to double in next 10 years. And
faster.
That's maybe faster. Actually, I can tell you, Handel Jones always tell me, Ajit, you're understating the growth. He's telling me to be specifically, but by 2030, it'll be $1.3 trillion IC revenue.
Especially with how COVID has really energized it. So when we talk about what SEMI's doing differently, you actually have you have this thing you call this a four-pronged approach. What are the four prongs?
Yeah, so Dan, the problem is actually deep-rooted. It's a very serious problem. I mean, why we have this problem? So let's park the growth factor for a minute. Growth or no growth, we still have a problem, because if you look at the enrollments in high schools today or elementary schools, most of the kids are not signing up for STEM education. It used to be, in 90s, it used to be 20+%. And I've been told now the number is around 10 or 11% today. It's factor of 2 reduced in US and Western world. And the millennials and the Generation Z, they don't really think semiconductors is a preference for them to go into, or STEM education is a preference for them to go into. So we have a serious problem at the fundamentally growing the STEM education. And
Isn't that what SEMI Foundation is for?
Well, SEMI Foundation was involved, but I think our activities were very limited until 2016-17. But that doesn't really, if you just focus on that piece, And doing with small group, it doesn't work.
It's a scale problem.
It's a scale problem. We need all the high schools and students and a lot of public-private partnership needed. I think government should incentivize those schools which are promoting the STEM education, and really also educate teachers, but also educate parents.
What about your high-tech U?
Well, high-tech U is a program which starts at high school level and goes to university education.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what we do in this case, we bring the senior high school students into an industry campus for 3 days and inspire the heck out of them about how we do magic in our workplace. And we also help them with some mock interviews, some soft skills, and they really feel so inspired. And then they say, okay, this is the way I want to go in my future. So they stay with the STEM education, they come to universities and understand this, they take the technical degrees and they join our industry. Again, scale was not there before. Now we are working on scale. Then the third prong approach, you asked me 4 prongs. The third prong approach is the world is going into massive digitalization. So we need to really reskill our workforce. We can deal with the current technological importance that industry is involved with. And the fourth prong is a kind of a low-hanging fruit, but again, scale was not there. DoD releases roughly 200,000 veterans every year. And my understanding is this: most of the veterans end up going into companies like Walmart or Amazon or supply chain companies or security companies, the security roles. These are the best workers. They come with the right, good set of training, discipline, work ethics. And when in Global Foundries, I hired in my first year 300 some veterans. I trained them. They were the best workforce. And what my view is that as SEMI, we want to really expand this program, that let's take out of 200,000 every year, let's start with maybe 10% 1 year and then 15% go to be 50%. That's where we're going to create the talent pipeline for this industry. And then actually the problem is much bigger. We need a lot more than the four-prong approach. But this is what basically I'm trying to do at SEMI.
So yesterday I ran into Sujay King Liu, who is, as you know, is Dean of Engineering at UC Berkeley. She's also chair of this new thing called the American Semiconductor Academy Initiative. And she was really excited about the partnership that you and her have put together with SEMI and the ASA. But what's the rationale behind that? Dan,
I tell you, I'm super excited about this partnership. Sujay and I met a few times before. And when recently she talked about American Semiconductor Academy, and SEMI has, you asked me about the high-tech U for university connections. Between SEMI and ASA, we have now connection with roughly 200 to 250 universities and community colleges. And especially what Sujay brings to the table with her ASA initiative, most of the universities that she has signed up under ASA, they have a semiconductor curricula as part of their offering. Mm-hmm. Now imagine this is going to put our program on steroids, because we partner together and prepare the students coming out of the universities ready to go into the semiconductor companies. And this,
what I like about it is it just, there's so many, the problem that we were talking about just a moment ago is it's always a scale problem, is how do you move the needle? And if you have 200 universities, community colleges, that's huge. Then the other thing is you get pull through from the semi-member companies, right?
Absolutely. Then this one is actually, my math in this one is 1 + 1 is more than 3, actually is more than 11. That's the math, the way it works for me. This partnership will really be tremendous for our industry, tremendous.
So the question is obviously something new like this, and how do you align 200 universities, community colleges? I assume there has to be some sort of funding that really gets this thing going, right?
Well, again, funding should come from multiple sources. Now, I'm hoping that the CHIPS Act, when it's ready to be rolled out, the US government will look into this ASA-SEMI partnership. This will be a very democratic process supporting every need for the country. This is very US-centric. Will support the US companies unconditionally, but only for the microelectronics industry. Yes, that's where the focus is. So the other funding will come from the state governments. Like Arizona is now going to have 2 new fabs or 3 new fabs with Intel and TSMC. Ohio will have a fab. There are actually, Dan, it's more than that. I mean, I don't think most people know that. SEMI collects data on the World Web-based fab announcement. There are 86 fabs have been announced around the world to be commissioned by 24. But in US alone, 13 fabs are coming. 13 fabs in US. So I mentioned.
So let's do some math here. If I have 13 fabs, how many jobs does that create?
Well, Jan, it's very simple. That typically, again, it depends on the size of the fab. Let's say medium to large size fab, about 2,000 people inside the fab, which have engineers, technicians, operators, and so on, and facilities guys. But this is a well-known, established fact for every job inside the fab.
So wait, let's come back to it. So if I have 86 fabs, I have that times 2,000, right? If I have 13 fabs in the US, I have 26,000 new jobs in the US that are going to be opened up for people with these skill sets, right?
It's more than that. For every job inside the fab, you create 4 to 5 support jobs outside the fab.
Okay.
So that means for 13 fabs, you need another, multiply by 5, 10,000 times 1,300, 30,000 more jobs. It will come. And you need to fill those jobs. You need to find people. So 130 plus 26 is 156,000 jobs right there, just for 13 fabs, and that's next 4 years.
And that's just, and that doesn't include what has not been announced yet or the growth.
That's right. And one more thing, Jan, I checked this data recently. I don't know the source. I can provide you the source actually. Today, there are 90,000 unfilled jobs in the US, 90,000 unfilled jobs. In fact, I won't mention the names of the companies. A couple of executives spoke at Semicon West in December. And one of the executives said, this is unprecedented for us, the number of unfilled jobs that they have.
Yeah, so, you and I, we've been talking to people about this, right?
I know.
All of us have, and we've been hearing this over and over and over again, that workforce development is just become the top priority. Coming back to your oxygen, there's no oxygen. And, especially if the United States wants to come back and have technology sovereignty and be a leader in semiconductors again, this has to happen, right?
It has to happen. I
mean,
mean,
otherwise there's no oxygen in the room.
Then I think it's even more fundamental now. After the pandemic has raised the awareness to a different level, now it has become very clear that semiconductors is of the strategic importance from national security point of view and economic security point of view. Actually say economic prosperity point of view more than security. So we need that. And I think most countries are waking up to this. There are many countries are actually announcing big packages for bringing semiconductor ecosystem. You won't believe this. I've been approached by at least 4 different countries, and I won't mention the names today if you want me to. They have asked me to talk about how can we bring ecosystem in our country. So,
so tell me something. What happens if we fail in the United States at workforce development? Do all those jobs go somewhere else?
And that's not an option. That's not an option. We will not fail. We should not even think that way. We must work together. We must collaborate with each other, work with each other. This is too important, and we cannot fail. That's not an option.
And the opportunities for Americans are great. And I really like how you're connecting the demand pull from SEMI members to the university, because that really hasn't been done with scale. It's all been, company to company. So that's great.
Well, we're not going to fail, Dan. We're going to make it happen.
Thanks for coming today.
we get a lot going on, and there's a lot in the pipeline. I can stay with you for hours and hours and tell you more details about everything that we're doing. And but I'm very excited about it, very passionate about it. And I'm so also glad that the people who are working with us are equally passionate also. So
that's fantastic. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate you taking.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
we'll come back on this one.
Anytime. Thank you.